Okay, so we're live. Welcome everybody to our live stream ahead of World Kidney Day tomorrow. I'm here with Yvonne from Filter Your Future and Defeat Diabetes founder, Dr. Peter Brukner. Thank you guys for joining us.
Pleasure, Alice. Hi, Yvonne.
Great to be here, Alice. Hi, Peter.
So we're here to talk about the crucial link between diabetes and kidney disease. And for those of you who don't know about Defeat Diabetes, we are a program that helps people with type 2 diabetes and other metabolic conditions put their disease or their condition into remission. And we do that through a low carb approach to eating. So, Peter, I might just throw the first question to you. Not many people in the community know that type 2 diabetes is a major cause of kidney failure, and that can lead to things like dialysis and even kidney transplant. What is the link here? You know, what does diabetes do to the kidneys that causes them to fail?
Right. Well, it's not just one of the major causes. It is the major cause of kidney failure is diabetes. And the statistics vary a bit, but somewhere between 25 and 40% of people with type 2 diabetes have some kidney disease as well. So it's incredibly common. When you think there's nearly 2 million people with type 2 diabetes.
You're just breaking up.
So
there,
the reason for the damage to the kidney is the same reason that people with diabetes have damage to their eyes and their heart, their vascular system, you know, their amputations of their feet and so on. It's because when you have high levels of blood sugar, the blood sugar attaches itself to proteins, and you've got sort of what's called glycation, so glucose attaching to these proteins, and they ultimately damage small blood vessels.
Peter, you're just breaking up there with your internet connection. So I think we might have lost Peter there, but that's okay. I'm sure he will rejoin. Yvonne, I might throw to you now. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Filter Your Future?
Thanks, Alice. Filter Your Future is a social enterprise I founded in 2017. And the whole purpose of getting Filter Your Future up and running was the sheer fact that actually nobody's teaching children about how to have a lifestyle that will prevent type 2 diabetes and chronic kidney disease. And so the program is developed so that young children can learn through a primary school setting. Mm-hmm. And so from 2017 until the start of the pandemic, myself and a colleague were going into primary schools around Victoria, and we would have an all singing, dancing science show where we would teach children about how the kidneys filter the blood to clean out all the waste and toxins and create the urine or the wee. And by helping children to understand what the kidneys actually do, and then to have lots of scenarios with choices about sugar and trying to help children to guide them through knowledge that will help them have a healthier life and not get sick kidneys. And I think I was so astounded when I first read the statistics about the numbers of people whose kidneys were failing that could have been prevented. And it's just over 50% now. As Peter said before, the major cause of chronic kidney disease, renal failure, is type 2 diabetes. And if you add also high blood pressure to that, I think the figure adds up to about 51% of all cases, and that's preventable. So I think I had a feeling that it was just not acceptable to wait until adults got sick to start teaching them about, oh, you've got type 2 diabetes or you're pre-diabetic, well, now we'll give you the education. And it seemed to me to be just a no-brainer to go into a school where they're already getting plenty of health education. There's lots of really good health education. But to my way of thinking, none of it is linked to cardiovascular disease. And you need children to understand what the kidneys do in this important role to filter the blood. Once they understand that, and you teach them about what happens when the filters don't work, the little nephrons in the kidneys don't work anymore, then they learn about either a kidney transplant or dialysis is what's needed to stay alive. And I think when adults and children learn about that, they're more inclined to want to make good, healthy choices for their future well-being. So that's why I founded Filter Your Future, basically to get education out there for children and to use the children as the conduit to the parents to be educated and to take home some information.
Yeah, that's awesome. We have quite a bit of stuff on Defeat Diabetes that's about educating young children and families as a whole. But Peter, we might just throw back to you before we had a few internet issues. So we were talking about, you know, type 2 diabetes being the leading cause of kidney failure, which can lead to dialysis and transplant, as Yvonne just said. So we were chatting about the link, you know, what does diabetes do to the kidneys that causes them to fail?
Yeah, so as we were saying, that the diabetes or high blood sugar damages the small blood vessels, and that's in the eyes and that's in the legs, everywhere. So it likewise causes damage to the small blood vessels in the kidney, and those are the small blood vessels that act as the filtration in the kidney. So basically, the role of the kidney, as Yvonne said, is to remove the waste from the blood and get rid of it out through the urine. And if that filtration system is not working well because of the poor blood supply, because the blood supply is impaired as a result of the damage from the sugar, then that's when you get into trouble. I think it's really important to mention, as Yvonne alluded to, that you don't just sort of get type 2 diabetes when you're 50. You're developing type 2 diabetes over your whole adult life or even children's life. So, it's a slow process. And so you don't want to wait until you've got the full-blown disease with all the complications, the kidney, the eyes, the legs, and so on. So it's very hard. It's very hard to convince people that they need to do these measures to prevent getting sick. It's amazing how often when people have a heart attack, they'll change everything. They'll stop smoking, they'll change their diet, they'll start exercising and so on. Why does it take a heart attack to do that? And half the people don't survive a heart attack anyway. So again, why do we wait till we've got kidney failure before we make those changes? Surely we should be making those lifestyle changes much earlier to prevent all these different diseases occurring. And that's really the key to prevention of this kidney disease.
So just talking there, Peter, about not waiting until you're actually sick to make the changes. So what do people need to look out for when it comes to kidney disease? What are the signs and symptoms?
Well, often there's not much to see initially. Then eventually, often the first sign is when you go to your doctor, he tests your urine, and there's a protein called albumin in the urine, and that might be the first thing that raises suspicions to the doctor that maybe your kidneys are being damaged, and then it'll be a matter of going on to do further tests to assess the kidney function. So hypertension is another one.
Yeah, do genetics play a part in that?
I think genetics play some part in diabetes. There's no doubt about that, but not as much of a part as your lifestyle issues, in particular your diet. So yes, there is a slight genetic tendency, but all the more reason if you have a family history to make sure you don't go down that track. So the problem with this is that, as I said, you damage those blood vessels, you damage the kidney, and it's very hard to reverse that damage. We do see some improvement with changing diet, but certainly the best way to do it is to prevent that damage occurring. And the way to do that is to reduce the sugar and the processed carbohydrates and so on in your diet. And that's what Yvonne is trying to do with her schools education, is to get people eating better, because it'll help not just their kidney, but a whole range of other health issues.
So something that I found really interesting was the Australian Health Survey results. So back in 2013, so a little while ago now, it revealed that 1 in 10 Australian adults were shown to have chronic kidney disease, but only 1 in 16 of those people were actually aware that they even had it, because as you said, Peter, before, there's not much to look out for. For those people who don't know that they have, chronic kidney disease, and I guess for the people who do, what are the possible health outcomes of having kidney disease?
Well, I mean, your kidneys gradually deteriorate in function. So it can be related to having high blood pressure, which is another risk factor for disease. But ultimately, your kidneys fail. When your kidney function gets down to less than 15%, your kidneys have failed, and they're not doing the job of keeping you alive. That's when you need to go onto dialysis, and then eventually possibly onto a transplant. And dialysis is not much fun. I mean, you're hooked up to a machine for 6 hours a day, 3 days a week. I mean, that is not a great way to spend your life. And a kidney transplant, while they're not as sort of major operation as they were years ago, but they're still a very significant operation. There's rejection of the transplant. There's a whole lot of issues. So this is, kidney disease is bad news, and we need to be doing more to prevent that developing.
I think something also to note there is you were just saying that you're on dialysis for 5 to 6 hours a day for 3 days out of the week. That's not just your life, that's your family's life too. Someone's going to have to take you there. Someone's going to have to stay with you and care for you, and you can't work and too tired to kind of socialize and things like that. So it's the way I think we see it at Defeat Diabetes is that, sure, it's a health outcome from a disease, but it's an entire lifestyle burden.
Absolutely. The burden of chronic disease is huge. And as you say, it's not just on the individual with the disease, it's on their family, their carers, their children, and so on. And it's, we've had a lot of people since Defeat Diabetes has been launched come up and actually get their parents on it, because they're worried about their parents and their diet. And I think maybe the younger generation are a bit more aware of what they should be eating, and some of us oldies are a bit back in the dark days. So, but look, it's a horrible disease. Any of these chronic diseases are pretty horrible. And then the trouble is with diabetes is you often have multiple chronic diseases. You might have kidney failure, and you'll be going blind, and you'll have a few toes chopped off, and you'll be developing Alzheimer's. I mean, it's not a lot of fun. And but the exciting thing is that we've always been told as medical students and as doctors that type 2 diabetes is a chronic progressive disease, and we know now that that's not the case. There is actually good evidence from our colleagues in both the UK and the US that we can actually put diabetes into remission with this low carb eating approach, and that's really exciting because it gives people with diabetes hope. It gives doctors who are treating people with diabetes hope. And it's very exciting. We just have to convince everyone that that's the way to go, and they have to start defeating diabetes. But Yvonne, what's your experience with the effect of diet and reducing the amount of sugar on kidney disease?
Well, it's been interesting because, like a lot of us in my age group, we were
our age group,
yes. Some of the things that we've been taught in the past were just totally. We're finding out now. I'm finding out that it's hasn't helped my health at all, and I think one of the things that I've really wanted young children to be able to do is to sort of develop a way of critically thinking about what they're doing to their bodies. And so the education program we've developed is not to go and tell people what to do and what not to do, but to help them to make really sound choices through giving them good evidence. And I've been astounded at 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds who can actually understand what dialysis is. We use a lovely little role play that I end up being the robotic machine, with the blood going around my robotic machine, and we have a role play that the kids understand. Well, can you go to work? No, I'm too tired. But you have dialysis this week. But are you better next week? no, I've got this for the rest of my life, and I have to go on this machine to stay alive. Well, can I go on holidays? Well, it's a bit hard because I have to stay near the hospital or the dialysis centre. What about hanging out with my friends? Well, it's a little bit hard because I'm just so tired, and I have to travel an hour to the area where I do dialysis, and so, you know, it goes on like that. Children get that, and they come up to me and say, I don't want to get diabetes. I don't want to get sick kidneys. I'm going to eat healthy now, they say. And we get them to measure out the sugar, how much sugar is, and I'm sure most of the listeners tonight will know that, you know, if you have a standard 600 ml sugary drink, you can get 16 teaspoons of sugar out of that. And one of the things we do in the classroom is we say, well, what if you have one of those drinks every day for a whole year? How much sugar is that your kidneys have to filter out? That's 23 kilos of sugar just from one 600 ml. And then you can go on and talk about slushies that have got about, you know, 23 or 24 teaspoons of sugar. So actually involving the children in seeing actually measuring out the sugar and actually carrying the kilo of sugar around and lining them up, and then talking about dialysis through a role play, then I think children are they're great filters themselves. They work things out pretty quickly, and it's a great joy to actually bring the program to the schools. And incidentally, the children between foundation, so prep or kindergarten, to up into grade 4, when we ask them if they're going to make changes to their lifestyle as a result of this, just a hands up thing, 96% of them are telling me that they are going to make some changes because they want to be healthier. And when we ask the grade 5s and 6s what changes will they make, I was very interested that about a third of them say one of the changes they want to make is they want their parents to change. So that's
we hear that a lot after the sugar education pieces, that kids go home and change the way their whole family eats, and that's really exciting because you can have a huge impact. And I mean, it's interesting what you're saying about like foundation to year 4. You know, my gut feel would always have been, they're too young to understand, and I think it's a great tribute to the way you present the stuff, the way you teach it, is that they do get it with those role play and so on. So yeah, it's amazing that they can actually understand what's going on.
Yeah, one of the things, actually, I've got a I don't know if you can see this here. Hold it there. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is a picture of some of the kids. We dress them up as young scientists, and we teach them about hydration and dehydration and the colour of healthy wee. And we tell them that you need to drink lots of water to keep your kidneys well hydrated and your whole body well hydrated. And you'll see that this was put out by, it's called Shoestring, and it's actually a magazine that comes out every 2 months from the Dialysis and Transplant Association of Victoria, commonly known as DATA. And I'd like to acknowledge the members of DATA because they actually sponsor the Filter Your Future program in schools in Victoria. And last year, because of the pandemic, we couldn't go into the schools. So they switched the funding rather than for school visits, it was to actually partner with Sugar by Half and go online. So our first lot of lessons are actually being launched tomorrow or this week for World Kidney Day, and those lessons are for foundation grade 1 and grade 2, and then during the rest of this year we'll be getting lessons online for grades 3 to 6. So I'd really like to acknowledge the members of DATA because this is a small Victorian-based organisation. Every one of them are volunteers. Everyone in DATA either is impacted through having chronic kidney disease themselves. They're either on dialysis or they've had a kidney transplant or they're a carer or member of the family. So what a great thing for this organisation that recognises they don't want people to have to go on dialysis if they can avoid it. And sure, some people can't avoid it. Like, in my own case, I'm not on dialysis, but I do have chronic kidney disease, but it's inherited chronic kidney disease. But it was through education that I learnt that I could slow down the progression of the disease by having a healthier lifestyle, by eating well, drinking lots of water, having exercise, getting good sleep, things like that. And I think just knowing that you can do something, even if you've got diabetes already, you can do something about it. If you've got chronic kidney disease already, you can actually still make your body healthier and slow down the progression of all the various comorbidities that go with these chronic diseases.
That leads pretty nicely into the next question. We've had a few audience questions on this come through. You were just talking there, Yvonne, about kind of preventing your chances of getting kidney disease in the future. So, Peter, maybe if you could just paint a little picture for our audience tonight about how the Defeat Diabetes way of eating, so a low-carb approach to eating, can minimise your risk of developing chronic kidney disease.
Look, it's pretty simple, Alice. I mean, there's one cause of this damage to the blood vessel and to the kidneys, and that's having too much sugar in your blood. So, it's very, very simple. We've just got to reduce the amount of sugar in our blood. And the way we do that is by removing sugars and starches in particular from our diet through a low-carb eating program. And people always sort of, a little bit hesitant about it. They hear the word low carb and they say, oh, uncarb's essential and so on. They're actually not essential at all. And we all have way too many carbs. And the numbers seem to go up every year about how many carbs the average person is consuming every day. So it's not just, it's just, soft drinks, so sugar and soft drinks. But again, we all sort of know that the 16 teaspoons in a bottle of Coke that Yvonne mentioned before, but there's things like orange juice, which has got just as much sugar as Coke does, of chocolate milk, of Red Bull, of Just Juice, little fruit drink sort of thing. So there's a whole range of different drinks. And then the other interesting thing is that what I certainly didn't realize until relatively recently is that sugar is hidden everywhere. So in processed food, so in the foods that you see, you walk up and down the aisles of your supermarket and everything in packets or cans, what we call processed food, that 80% of those foods have added sugar. So that's really scary amount. And basically, it's very simple. The best way to eliminate sugar is to avoid processed foods. So what that means is going back to real food, going back to eating, meat and fish and eggs and dairy and fruit and vegetables and nuts and all that sort of stuff that, probably the way our grandparents used to eat, really. They didn't have these
butter and things like that.
Yeah, they didn't have these massive problems with obesity and type 2 diabetes. So something has changed over the last generation or two. And clearly what that something is diet, because the other things haven't changed that much. Exercise is about the same, but diet has changed massively. These ultra-processed foods didn't exist a generation ago, and now they're everywhere. So it's really it's avoiding processed foods and getting back to eating real food. Learning how to cook yourself. That's why we've got these cooking demos in our app. Because so many people have just stopped cooking. Just easier to go and get a frozen pizza or Uber Eats or something like that, and it's much healthier and cheaper to cook for yourself. So there's a lot of things that we can do that are not that difficult. People say, how can you go on a low carb diet? I mean, I've been on a low carb diet for 10 years and I enjoy every meal I have, and I don't have a problem at all sticking to it. I've just stopped having the sugars and some of the starches, the pasta and the rice and the potatoes. So I have cauliflower rice instead of rice, and I have zucchini noodles instead of pasta and things like that. So there's not much you can't have. I make my own bread, out of nuts and grains and things like that. So it's not that hard to eat low carb, and the benefits are just astronomical. As I said, the studies overseas have put 50% of people with type 2 diabetes into remission. I mean, that is unheard of with any medication, any treatment. It's really exciting, and we want to spread the word and tell people about this because, people don't know this stuff, and it's really important to get the message out there.
Can I just add to that, if that's
please
okay?
do.
Just after I read Peter's book, A Fat Lot of Good, I thought, because I thought I was leading a fairly healthy lifestyle and had a pretty good diet. But I thought, I need to make a few changes. Within a very short, one of the first changes I did was to go back to full cream milk, because I'd been caught up on that, and I've been to renal dietitians and spoken to plenty of medical experts who I was led to believe through advertising and through what we read from nutrition experts is that we need to go on this low-fat diet. But I changed that in October last year, and within maybe 2 months or so, both my husband and I had lost a couple of kilos. Now, we had been exercising like right through the pandemic. We did our 10,000 steps every day. We were exercising, we were doing what we could.
Nothing else to do.
Nothing else changed. Nothing changed. But we made that simple change, and just a few kilos came off. That was really nice, and we both felt a lot better. And so we're gradually implementing the suggestions there to try and just improve our diets. And I think when I think back to being in the classroom with the young children, a lot of what we do, we have flashcards with them showing comparisons, and we have choices for them to make. So it might be, white milk versus chocolate milk, which one's the better choice? And or it might be apple and apple pie, which one's the better choice? And if you're choosing apple pie, is it the one you make at home or the one you buy in the carton? Why not? Why is that one better? Why is the homemade one better? Because you can control the amount of sugar and what you put in it. So those sorts of things are so important for us. And I think what Peter and Defeat Diabetes are doing, educating adults because they're buying the food. They're also working with the families. I'm working with the children and the teachers so that this next generation coming through can also be educating the parents and the adults and the grandparents and the aunties and uncles and the neighbours. And I think without this education that Defeat Diabetes is doing and Sugar by Half is doing and Food of Your Future is doing, we are basically, what society is doing then is just throwing hands up and saying, well, it's okay, we'll just let people keep getting sick. But really, people getting sick, they don't know that the food that they're taking in is actually causing them to get sick over slowly. And chronic kidney disease is often referred to as a silent killer because it sneaks up on people. They can, if you look on the Kidney Health Australia website, they have a blurb there that says you can lose up to 90% of your kidney function without even having any symptoms.
Yeah, wow. That actually leads pretty nicely into the next audience question. So we've just talked about how you can, prevent getting this disease, but somebody has asked, once you have it, can you reverse it, or you've got it for good?
No, I think you can, whether you can completely reverse it or not, it is quite variable, but you can certainly improve your kidney function. And there's no doubt that removing sugar from your diet and processed foods will improve the state of your blood vessels and, as a result, the kidney function. Now, whether it depends sort of how far down the track you are, I guess, and how much damage has been done to the kidney, whether it's repairable or not. But certainly there is significant improvements to be made.
So there's actually a great question here from Gabby, and it's a question for you, Peter. So it's a bit of a long one, so bear with me. For someone with, it says, non-manageable systemic inflammation, which is linked to high risk of, this is so hard to pronounce, atherosclerosis.
Yep,
would a low-fat diet, okay, thanks. Would a low-fat diet be better in reducing the risk of cholesterol attaching to the blood vessels, or would a high-fat diet still be the best choice?
Yeah, well, the good question. And, if you've got a couple of hours, we can talk about cholesterol and so on. But look, I'm glad she mentioned inflammation there, because inflammation is really the key to a lot of disease. that's actually the inflammation that damages the walls of the blood vessels, and then the cholesterol attaches to the damaged walls. So the cholesterol is like the sort of the fire truck at the fire. It's always there, but it's not the actual cause. What the cause is the inflammation. So this chronic low-grade inflammation has been linked to most of the chronic diseases. So the question is, what can we do to reduce that low-grade chronic inflammation? And there are a whole bunch of things that we know will reduce inflammation. Things like stopping smoking, reducing your alcohol intake, exercising more, getting better sleep, being out in the sun more. But the biggest single thing is removing sugar and processed foods from your diet, because they're the things, and vegetable oils, they're the other things that really cause inflammation throughout the body, not just in the blood vessels. I've had patients with really debilitating arthritis who've basically been able to resume normal lives when they remove all those causes of inflammation from their diet. So inflammation is a real key to this. It's much more important than cholesterol. We actually need cholesterol. Our brain needs cholesterol. Our nervous system needs cholesterol. We shouldn't get too stressed about cholesterol. If you eat the right diet and remove the processed foods and the junk food and so on, your cholesterol will probably come down to a reasonable level. And I don't stress too much about cholesterol. I think your blood sugar levels, your HbA1c, which is a measure of your previous 3 months blood sugar, is far more important risk factor than cholesterol.
So we've got a question here. This one can be for you, Yvonne. Is the children's education programs for Filter Your Future, are they only in Victoria or are they Australia-wide?
They're only in Victoria because that's our funding body is only in Victoria, and there's only a couple of us that are able to run the program at the moment. We're currently not in schools because of the restrictions, and I wouldn't be able to go back into a school until I'd had the vaccination anyway. Yeah, we'd love to see
the online program though, Yvonne, that Sugar by Half and Filter Your Future have put together through Cool Australia. That's available throughout Australia, and you can, if your parents or teachers out there, you can say to your school, go and have a look at these programs, and they're terrific lessons there.
That's right. So the lessons are freely available. People just have to go onto the Cool Australia website, or they can go in through Sugar by Half or Filter Your Future. But Cool Australia have some great lessons there for Sugar by Half and Filter Your Future. And once people know about it, anyone can go and have a look at them. They just have to register with Cool Australia. That's free of charge, because we want this education to get out there, and we want teachers to feel comfortable with it. And we want children and their parents to get this information so that we have a healthier Australian population.
Yeah, they're great lessons.
I've got a really great question here from Vicky, and this one stems back to our conversation just before about genetics. So Vicky says, I have a family history of high blood pressure and I'm currently on medication. I'm also pre-diabetic. Is it safe for me to eat butter and cheese to the extent that the low carb community kind of promotes?
Yeah, look, I think butter and cheese are not the sort of, they've been demonized for a long time. I mean, I think in history, we'll look back and say the most stupid nutrition decision we ever made was to replace a natural healthy fat like butter with a chemical concoction like margarine. And that, I reckon, is probably the single dumbest decision we've ever made. So, people have been eating those sort of foods for thousands of years and not had any problems with heart disease. So it's really, it's much more the processed foods, the ultra processed foods, that are causing all the damage. And you'll find that both high blood pressure and high blood sugar responds very well to a low carb eating program such as Defeat Diabetes.
Well, that kind of wraps up our audience questions, and we've been going for about 35 minutes. So I think, in short, to summarize for our audience tonight, that crucial link between diabetes and kidney disease, I think we've kind of covered it. It's diet. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's it's basically, you know, having high levels of sugar in your blood damages the blood vessels and damages the kidneys. So it's very simple. You lower your sugar levels in your blood, then you'll prevent and improve those conditions. And the way we do that is, you know, we don't eat things that are going to elevate your blood sugar, and that is sugars, processed foods, carbohydrates, starches. They're the things that elevate your blood sugar. It's very simple. You know, it's so simple. You know, it's almost too simple. You know, I mean, as my kids would say,
and it's so simple. We created
you know?
a program on it.
Yeah. Look, that's basically why, you know, we went ahead with this to defeat diabetes. Just the frustration that there was so much, you know, misinformation and lack of information out there. And we want to give people with type 2 diabetes hope, you know, hope that they can actually put their diabetes into remission, or at least get off most of their medication and get their blood sugars under control. And that way they can reduce the chance of having all these horrible conditions such as kidney disease and eye disease and so on. So, you know, I think it's a no-brainer, really. You want to prevent kidney disease, keep your blood sugar levels under control. The way you do that is with diet.
And it's like Yvonne was saying, you know, for defeat diabetes, it's the education piece that is so important. And that's what our program does. It educates people not only how to cook and eat real food, but it educates people on the science behind what these things do to the body, causing inflammation and things like that.
Yeah, I just did a blog recently on inflammation that you can have a look at on the site, and it might explain a few things about inflammation. I really believe inflammation is the key to this whole thing.
Okay, well, thanks so much. Oh, Yvonne, keep going.
Just put a little shout out for tomorrow, being World Kidney Day, and this event and the launch of the lessons are the only two events happening in Australia, and I think it's pretty sad that none of our organisations, none of our government is actually acknowledging that this is a major epidemic, and we need to be doing something about it. And I'm just so pleased to be with a group of people that are passionate and motivated to be making real change with real food, and that our children and our grandchildren will have a much better future because of it. So, and to all those people that do already have chronic kidney disease, be reassured though that you can still have a healthier lifestyle and so on through making some changes to your diet, but also to know that this year's theme is living well with kidney disease. So, you know, we know there's lots of people who are caring for those who are not well, but our aim is to actually to be living well without kidney disease. So I think I'd just like to say thanks very much to you, Alice and Peter, for sharing some tonight with me. It's been really good. Thank you.
Yvonne, you guys do a fantastic job. I've seen some of Yvonne in action, and she does a fantastic program. If and when you're allowed back into schools, if I had a kid at school, I'd be getting the school to invite Yvonne along and talk to their young kids. It's a great show. So thanks, Yvonne, for everything you do, and I hope you enjoy World Kidney Day tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Thanks, Alice.
Thanks, guys, for joining us. See you guys. Thank you.
See ya.